Should the Bengals make a run at star receiver Odell Beckham Jr.? Hi again, everyone, and welcome into Cincinnati Bengals Talk. I'm James Rapien of allbengals.com. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure you get to rivertowninkery.com to get some jungle swag like this shirt right here. Today's video brought to you by Rivertown Inkery, and let's dive into this because I think a lot of you, when I asked that first question of Odell Beckham Jr., should the Bengals go after him, you probably said no. Why? They have a great trio of wide receivers. Why would you do that when you have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd? And I understand that. I totally get it. And we could also say, in the case against Odell, he's coming off of an ACL injury. You don't know when he's going to be fully healthy. He is 29 years old. All of those things. And I get it, and I understand it. And I'll preface what I'm about to say with the fact that I do think it's unlikely. I don't think the Bengals are necessarily planning on making a run at Odell Beckham Jr. But and I know this is uncomfortable or not uncomfortable, uncharted territory for Bengals fans. But the Bengals have a player in Joe Burrow that the rest of the NFL is going to gravitate to. Not just in 2022, but 2023, 2024, and beyond. That's what they have. They have that type of quarterback. And when you have that, guys like OBJ are always in play. Guys like that, yeah, he might not love the idea of coming back to the Midwest because he has a home in Beverly Hills and he loves the idea of playing for the Rams, but the Rams are yanking Odell around. They paid Allen Robinson. They extended Cooper Kupp and gave him big-time money. Aaron Donald, they took care of him. And meanwhile, Odell Beckham Jr. is like, well, I was productive. I had 21 receptions, 288 yards, and 2 touchdowns in the postseason. I was really, really good in the Super Bowl prior to my injury. And he's still waiting to get paid. And I think the Rams are almost taking Odell for granted. So if you're the Bengals, you at least have to have a conversation. Why? Well, because outside of your big three at receiver, it's question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark. You just don't know who it's going to be. They like Stanley Morgan Jr. He's been primarily a special teams player. They like Mike Thomas. Guess what? He's primarily a special teams player. And so are you banking on Puka Williams to be the fourth guy? No. Are you banking on Kwame Lassiter to be the fourth guy? No. That's not saying they won't. Trent Taylor, not saying he won't be productive if needed and called upon. But to me, when you look at what Odell Beckham Jr. would bring, he showed during the postseason and even during the 8 games with the Rams that he could be this red zone target that can make plays in big moments and in crunch time. And with this revamped Bengals offensive line, an offensive line that should be much better, I expect the Bengals to do what? Multiple empty sets, more empty sets. Joe Burrow loves it. Well, can you imagine 4 of the 5 guys that would be split wide being Jamar Chase, Odell Beckham Jr., Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins? And then maybe it's Joe Mixon. Maybe it's Hayden Hurst. Maybe it's Chris Evans. Good luck, because one of those guys is going to be in single coverage, probably multiple. And it just opens up endless possibilities. Now, Odell isn't going to be ready for September. Understand that. Probably won't be ready until, I would say, November would be the hope, is that by mid-November, he can get on the field and slowly work his way back. So by the time it's winning time, by the time that schedule gets really tough for the Bengals where they have to play the Bills and they have to deal with that back half of the 2022 schedule, which is just brutal. They play the Browns again and they play the Patriots on the road, and they have to deal with the Ravens at the end of all of those games. Well, they're probably going to matter for something. And if you throw in another wrinkle, that could be well worth it. Now, again, do I think it's going to happen? Not necessarily, but you got Odell Beckham Jr. flirting with Joe Burrow on Instagram, calling him the one. And so when you have that connection, when you have the LSU ties, and you have a quarterback like that players are going to gravitate towards, you have to embrace it. You have to embrace the idea of Odell or guys like him, right? Controversial guys that didn't necessarily thrive with the Giants. By the way, Giants, do you think they're well run? Didn't thrive with Freddie Kitchens, Kevin Stefanski, Baker Mayfield, and the Browns. Do you think that's well run right now? Do you feel like they're buttoned up, or is it drama filled? Because that's what it feels like to me. The Giants and Browns were drama filled. Odell Beckham Jr. goes to the Rams, and he was going to be their fourth guy, essentially, when he signed there. Robert Woods was still healthy. They liked what they saw from Van Jefferson. They liked Cooper Kupp. And Cooper Kupp was having, the best receiving season, not only of his career, but in the NFL last year. And, they still went and got Odell Beckham Jr. That's the point. He showed he could take a back seat. And Robert Woods ended up getting injured, and Beckham had a bigger role down the stretch than I think the Rams necessarily envisioned. But played a big role. Wasn't a distraction. Did you hear anything out of Odell? You're telling me this Bengals locker room couldn't absorb that? They're as close of a locker room as I've seen, period, covering the league. They just are. And I think Odell would come in and be like, oh, man, I can play with Chase, and I can play with Higgins, and I can play with Boyd and catch passes from Joe Burrow and do it on a one-year deal where I reestablish my value, have a shot at winning another ring. I think there could be mutual interest there, and certainly interest from Odell's side, because you don't have to be the guy. They're not necessarily going to rush you back. It gives the Bengals insurance. Joe Burrow and Odell certainly have a good relationship. So it's still far-fetched, but I think that the Bengals should absolutely at least have a conversation about it. And, I've been on the Will Fuller train, if you're familiar with this channel and if you watched my previous videos. And I still am. I think Will Fuller would make a ton of sense, probably cost less. He is healthy. There wouldn't be the media circus necessarily around an Odell signing. But it didn't feel like there was a lot of media. After Odell actually signed with the Rams, it didn't feel that crazy. And I don't think it would be crazy. I think this Bengals team not only would handle it, but I think they would be better with Odell Beckham Jr. in 2022. For more, make sure you hit that subscribe button and stay tuned, because we got more videos coming your way, whether it's me already crowning the Bengals, having the best wide receiver duo/trio in the NFL, or our stand-up with Elise Jesse at Paul Brown Stadium with the latest from Bengals OTAs. We're working on some interviews as well with Bengals players. So it's off-season, I get it, but Cincinnati Bengals talk never sleeps. So hit that subscribe button, ring the bell. For our channel coordinator, Andrew Fox Miller, I'm James Rapien, signing off for now right here on CBT, Cincinnati Bengals Talk.